If you're doing your taxes yourself, you will need tax preparation software. You could use the software online. You could use online software, or you could download software onto your computer and prepare your taxes on your own desktop computer. I'm using H&R Block as an example. You got different versions here. Basic is just simple tax returns, but the deluxe model is good. It also includes the state. And if you have some stocks, like you have a 1099 form, you will need to get the deluxe or premium version. And of course, if you have your own business, you will need to go premium business. So our example will be using this one, the deluxe plus state. And in order to do your taxes, you need forms. And you get your forms from wherever you have money or income. But your first form, and one of the most important forms, will be your W-2 form. This is from your wage. And I provide some information here on this website. So you could click on, the videos here to get more information. But this is a W-2 form. If you have some investments, you will have a 1099 form. This is for interest, and this is a 1099 for dividends. And if you have some like stock investments or ETF investments, you would then probably get a consolidated form, which includes 1099B, which will be stocks or the sales of ETF. And you could look this over. So of course, if you have a 1099B form, you're going to need to get the desktop version, and that's what I'll be showing you here. I started a sample return already, so to save time, but I'm trying to start from the very beginning of the program. You have to download it first. You have to put in an activation key, which wherever you buy it from, they will give you that activation key or number. You put that in, and then you could then start. So this is 2023, but it's very similar to 2024. So we'll just go through this. So we're going to start a new return. So just click. You can see here's one that already started, but we'll show you that later on. So we just click on that, and it's going to ask you, do you want to import them from last year? If you already did taxes on a tax program from last year, you can import them in. And as you can see, we're using H&R Block, but if you did it in TurboTax, you can import it in. And I'm pretty sure if you're going to be using TurboTax, you can import H&R Block past year's data also. So I'm going to say, I'm going to skip this because I'm not going to import anything in. But what this imports in is your address, a name, and social security number. It just saves you a lot of typing in of information. But I'm going to skip this. So, and I'm not going to import anything from my Quicken file. If you have Quicken, you can. But we're not. We're just going to do a basic tax return. So let's go. So it asks for information. Marrying status, files, single, married, and so on. We're going to do single as our example. And then it's asking you to put in to tell you about yourself. And you're going to add this information in there. And then your state of residency. So we're going to use PA as our example. And where you hear full-time or part-time. If you went between a couple states, then they'll probably ask for dates, but you could actually just say part-time resident, and then you could put in your other state, and that could be part-time, and the program would tell you how to handle that. But for this example, we're just going to do full-time, one state. And you're going to need this information. If you don't put it in, it may still go forward, but you're definitely going to need your social security number and your birth date, that's for sure, and your occupation. Now, tell us any of these things. I was a full-time student, I was blind, whatever, I was disabled, you would click these off. And now if you have dependents, you can add your dependents and you need to put their name, social security number, and so on. But we're not going to do any dependents. Save that. I'm going to go forward. They're going to ask you if you want to upgrade. Just say no. You already paid money for this program. Okay, so choose any item that applies to you. Okay, I have a W-2 form, so that's a wage. So I'll put that down. If you got a tax return last year from your state or local, you got to pay tax on that return. So you will click this if you did get a state or local income tax return. If you have interest in a bank or a CD or a treasury bill, you check that off. If you have dividends, you may have that's a 1099 DIV. If you have a money market account, that the gains you get may be listed as dividends, so you would check that off, and then we go forward. And now they're going to ask you information about your W-2. So there's a couple ways to enter in that data. I think if this is the first time you're doing it, it's good to enter it in manually to get the feel of it. After that, you could then upload a PDF or take a picture, try to do shortcuts. But by doing it manually, you will learn what information is surely needed. Okay, so let's go into my sample that I will show you that we already enter in this information. Okay, this is our sample return. The data has already been entered in. So I can see my first name is sample, my last name is return, and we just go down here, we just look at some of the data. So I'm putting in my employer. And this is information I am taking off of the W-2 form. And as we go forward, you can see down here below, it's actually the data you're putting in, it's actually putting it into this form. If you want to hide it, you can. This will just give you more room up there, or you could show the form. I go back and forth. Usually I hide it, but let's hide it for now. We'll bring it back up anytime. So I'll put in the wages. Let's say 39,000, tax withheld. It says all the box numbers from your W-2 form, you're entering that data into this program. If you have data in the boxes or amounts in the box 12, you would just put that in. Note the codes. The codes are very important, and the codes are listed right here, and they'll be on the form. We just put them in. So make sure you scroll down. Make sure you put in the data from all your boxes, and also if there's data in your taxes, boxes 15 to 20, you will add that into your form. And also there will be information in your local taxes, possibly, depending on where you're at. And there'll be boxes 18, 19, and 20. So we just hit next. Okay, the employer ID is reminding you need that. I'm not putting that in, but you would put that in, and that would be on your W-2 form. Asking you these questions, you look at them. Chances are you probably leave them blank, but let's move on. And there is my W-2 form from XYZ company. If you have two W-2 forms, you would just select enter another one, and you will then put that down in here. Let's see what happens. It just starts it all over again. But I'm not going to do that. But you can see already started that other sample, but we're just going to delete that because we're just doing one W-2. Now they're asking for your interest. This would be your 1099 INT. You can import them in. We start it, we'll just hit edit, and we can see what we already entered in. Interest is usually on Form 1099 INT. Just go through and you add that in. And you put down the name of your broker. any box number on that form, you add that information on here. Then we hit next. Okay, if you have two INT forms, you would then add another one. Now, dividends. That's form 1099 DIV. And just show what that looks like. Again, you just take the data off of the form. And we have another one. Now, I got some qualified dividends. If you want to know the difference between ordinary dividends and qualified dividends, first place you will go is you just click on qualify here, and it would tell you what a qualified dividend is. It's actually to your advantage because it puts it, the qualified dividends are taxed at a different rate based on your income. So, and if you can't find it here, you can always just do a quick Google, ordinary dividends versus qualified dividends, and they'll explain the difference. Now we just continue, just go through the program. Choose any of these businesses. Well, we don't have anything. We're doing kind of a simple tax return. The only thing we're adding differently, it will be the 1099B, which would be the sale of some stocks. And if you have sale of stocks, you can't use the online program anymore. You must use the desktop version. And that's what it's asking here. We got sales of stocks. And you can click learn more, and you will see it will tell you it's a 1099B. And you might want to read that. You can print it if you want it, and so on. So there's a lot of information here you can look. And the first time you're doing your own taxes, you will spend time reading this over, but the second time will go a lot quicker. I've already added some information from a 1099, and this will be, you could add that, but since we already did add it to save time, I already got the data in. This is from Swabble, say, it could be any company. And these were some shares of stocks that were sold. And let's look at them and see how that checks out. So let's look at good old Apple. So you got to put in the number of shares you sold. They give you an example here. The date you acquired the shares and the date you sell the shares. That's important because it determines if you have to pay long-term tax or short-term tax, which are different. And you can read about that through going on a web search or more places. But just for our purpose, you just put in the data that's on your 1099. And you can see since this is over almost 10 years old, it's a long-term tax. Anything under a year is considered short-term. And it put in that information. Now let's move on. And we have another one, but I'm not going to show you that. Let's move on. Choose any to apply. Nothing here applies to a simple situation. No property sales. If you did sell your home, you would have to click on this. But we didn't. It's amazing what you could do with the program. I usually buy my programs during Black Friday or Cyber Monday. And then I just use them in the next year. Any tax sets, you would click yes or no. In this case, no. No foreign accounts. You go through the tutorial. So now it gives you sort of like a little summary. You got your wages, we got our interest, we got our dividends, and if you have more items, you can click on them. Like let's say, for an example, if you retire and you have Social Security, you will just go down here, go to, and you will get a SSA 1099. And if you have tax from Social Security or any other retirement form, you will go through the tutorial. In this case, I'm showing you using form SSA 1099. You will put in your data, that your amount, the amount you received there, and how much was withheld, and all the other information they ask, and then it will go through. So again, you're just following the tutorial step by step. Up top, we have tabs under the federal heading. This was your personal information. This was all the information you gave in the very beginning. This is your income. So at any time, you could go back to a form that you have entered. For an example, if you want to double check what you put on your W-2 form, you just click on go to that, and then you click edit, and you will see what you did there. So this is all your income areas. If you received interest, you're going to want to do that. There's your interest. After you're done all your income, then what comes up next is the adjustments. If you keep clicking next, you will eventually get into this area. Or if you want to speed things up, especially after you enter things and want to review them, you could go back in. So let's look at adjustments. And let's just say I contribute $5,000 to a traditional IRA. That would be an adjustment to my income because that contribution that you gave to your IRA is tax deductible to a traditional IRA. So let's go through that. IRA contributions, click on Go To, and read carefully what this is allowed to do. Back in 2023, if you're under 50 years old, the most you could contribute was $6,500. If you're over 50, you could go higher, $7,500. So we just click on Next. And it's asking you, is it a traditional or is it a Roth IRA? If it's traditional, that would be deductible. So that would lower your adjusted gross income. If you contribute to a Roth IRA, that is not deductible, but when you withdraw it in the future, it will be tax-free. So you will have to decide which would be to your advantage. So let's just say, are you contributing to a traditional or Roth? Well, yes, one of them, yes. Now it's asking you which one, traditional. If you want to learn more, just click here. And this gives you more information about contributing to a traditional. And down here, this will give you more information on contributing to an IRA. So read that information. That will be very helpful. But we're going traditional. So we enter your traditional contributions. Now note over here, as we're going through all of this, and since I already completed this form, it did calculate my state refund, but it's saying I owe the federal government $174. All right. But I did not add my adjustments yet. So let's just say we did a traditional, and I said 5,000. It could be any amount up to 6,500 for 2023. I know that's a lot of money. You might give less. You know what? Let's do less. Let's be realistic. I'm going to give 2,000. All right. So we go through that. Now I want you to watch over here how this changes. Not right away. Tell us if you had a no, we did not have a recharacterization. That's sort of a complex thing that very few people do anymore. Tell us if you have prior excess. No, we did not. This is the first time I'm doing an IRA. So this is what I'm giving, $2,000. Look at that. Did you see that? It went to where I owe 174. Now I get back 66. And I have $2,000 saved in my IRA for me when I retire. So you cannot pull that money out until 59 and a half, but we're saving for retirement. So that's a good way to do that. And that money in retirement grows tax-free until you pull it out. And I get a little refund. So in a way, I saved over $200 by doing that traditional IRA. All right, go back. I have no more adjustments. Now, it's asking you, are we going to itemize deductions or are we going to use the standard deduction? Well, the program will calculate which one is the best for you if you've been itemizing all along. I know very few people, only 15% of the population, are doing itemized deductions. The majority of us are doing standard deductions. And in 2023, the standard deduction was $13,850, which isn't pretty big compared to you. That means you have to itemize more than $13,000 to make it worthwhile. So we're going to definitely do a standard deduction and choose any deductions you had. Well, I had no mortgages. I had no real estate tax. I rented. So I had very few of these. I have none of these, so I can't check these off. Any charities, that's if you itemize, that could be a deduction. If I did something in charity, it was only a couple $100. That won't anywhere near the standard deduction, so I'm going to say no. But that won't be enough to really change your itemizing. So we just go through all these. We know it's going to be standards. So it's telling you good news. It's best to do a standard deduction, which the vast majority of us will be doing. And that you get $13,000 knocked off. Okay. And it's telling you in the future, if you want to do deductions, there's some strategies that you could do. It's called bunching, but that's for people who are donating a lot to charity or they have big deductions. Most people do not. Okay, credits. These are some items for credits. We don't have any dependents. All my college tuition payment is done and over with. So I'm just going to go through here and I'm not checking off any of these credits. And if you need more information on them, you can always click on what qualifies and read what they're telling you. We're just doing a simple form. So we have no credits, but they do tell you what they are. And health insurance coverage. Just asking if you had health insurance. And I did through my employment. So everyone in the household, which is me, had health insurance in 2023. Okay, I don't have any other penalties or taxes. Miscellaneous, most of this will not apply to the majority of people. Return in minimum tax, I didn't make a large enough money to work with that. So that's going to be no. And it may already be filled in for you because it knows your income. Again, you read this over, you follow the steps. Okay, we are now finished our federal. And once you finish your federal tax returns, you could then go to the state. You may have to import it in just by clicking on a button, and all your information then will report into the state. But we're going to focus mostly on the federal, and we are done, so we are finished. Now we want to get this ready to submit. You can submit it a couple ways in which I will show you. So we're going to click on submit, and here's the tax summary, which we just saw. But now we're going to check for accuracy. So we're going to click on this. And as you can see, it's an accuracy review. And a couple issues are popping up. And these issues must be fixed before you file or submit your return. Now for data verification, they're just sort of checking things out, making sure it's accurate. They want you to verify that it's okay. But the issue ones you have to check out. So let's see what they are. You can hit the show list to see them all, but I'm going to go through them one on one and give me a chance to fix them. And what they do is they show you the form down below, and they're asking for a domestic phone number. All right, so I'm just going to make one up. Okay, now we're going to go next. And now it's asking for a social security through. And that's just a made-up number, of course. All right, now we're in the verification mode. They just want to make sure that this is accurate because for some reason it's probably a little off. It's not the average. And I just made up that number, so it may be off, but we're going to say it's okay. So now we have 0 issues and one verification that hasn't been sort of checked, verified, but I mean, it's still popping up, but that's okay. So let's hit continue. Summary pops up again. And now it's telling me it's going to be checking the state. We already prepared the state, so I don't need to go through this. And now it's doing the final accuracy review. Okay, and it's just reading that your refund is guaranteed. Useful item for us to just delete that. Okay, based on my salary and their parameters, they're saying that your audit risk is low, so we have good news. And now we're going to be filing our returns. Now I'm using a old tax return, so things will be a little different, but let's go through it. Let's say if I want to do e-file or you want to print and mail. And let's try the e-file one. And it's going to say, since this is an old one, it's already expired, but let's see if we could go through it. Yes, good. I can't file it because this is 2023, and we're doing this in 2025, but we could still show you the steps. So you need to put in your routing number and your account number if you want to do it direct deposit. So I'm getting good old $66, so I'm going to put in my routing number and so on, and then you're going to have to confirm it, but I'm not going to put that in, so let's just see. Now, when you're filing e-file or by mail, you could do up to 5 returns with your activation code. You could print and mail it also. The federal is free when you buy the deluxe version. The state is not. So let's go through this and see how it looks. So here's the e-filing window we could get for the state and federal. If you do the state and federal together, each state may be different, but for Pennsylvania, it's $19.95 extra to file the state. What some people do is you just do the federal, which is free, and then you just print and you mail in the state, which might make it a little bit cheaper. So we're going to just do the federal. It's reminding you to print, make a PDF or print this out. I do both. I make a PDF and I also have a print copy, a hard copy in my file system. Now they're going to ask you for your older AGI. That's to verify. So if this was 2024, they'll be asking for your 2023 adjusted gross income. That's just to verify the number, and you would just go through that. And then you got the closures. Then you have to put in your birth dates and other information and PINs. And a PIN could be any number that you make up. And you just follow the steps and go through, and it will electronically mail in your tax return, which is pretty cool how that does to do that. And depending on your state system, you may have to mail it in if it needs some additional information that the tax program can't give through electronic transfer, or you could pay the $20 and do it electronically. And once you get that, you would then get a confirmation number, and you'll get an email later on if the IRS accepted your return.